All right, let's stay with this particular theme and also look at what has been happening in the UK. And of course, we've seen in news this afternoon, the UK's next Foreign Secretary will be David Cameron, and he will take a seat in the House of Lords to enable him to take up the post. Now, for more on this, let's speak to SABC News correspondent Stuart Smith, who joins us live now. Stuart, thank you so much for your time. Let's just start first with whether or not everyone could foresee this move.
Suella Braverman being sacked as Home Secretary was 50-50. It wasn't even clear initially that this reshuffle would happen today, but when it was, the jury was out. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, had been criticised before for not doing something earlier. And there was always this fear that if the Prime Minister did let the Home Secretary go as Minister, then she would be more dangerous on the backbenches, i.e. not in Cabinet, because from there she could try to rally support against the Prime Minister. But in the end, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. She's been criticised before by people within her own party for making statements not in line with government messaging. But this last one over the weekend, when she criticised the police service, suggesting that it was biased towards left-wing protesters, and seemed upset that the police had not banned that pro-Palestinian march, which she's responsible for policing, and many in her own party as well as the opposition said you can't have the Home Secretary criticising the police force for which they are responsible. And so in the end, Rishi Sunak took that decision on Monday to sack her as Home Secretary. But some suggest this could be all part of a larger plan for Suella Braverman, who may have her eye on Rishi Sunak's job sometime in the future, and this is a way of making a name for herself and getting support mostly from the right of her party. And indeed, the right of her party are quite upset that she's been sacked, because they believe she was saying the things that were true and also saying the things that voters to the right of politics here in the UK wanted to hear.
And of course, he now is going to be taking up, and that's David Cameron, of course, taking up a seat in the House of Lords. And a number of people saying, but how does this work then? Because he is not going to then be in the House of Commons. So all of it depending on that, him being made a peer. Let's explain to the viewers what that process then looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. For a start, it's really unprecedented to have, well, not unprecedented, but really rare for a Prime Minister to end up in the Cabinet. That's not happened for 50 years. And then on top of that, he's been appointed as a Lord, not as an MP. What's going on here is that in 2016, when he lost the referendum for Brexit, he stood down as an MP. 7 years later, he's still not a lawmaker, but Rishi Sunak has the power to appoint anyone to the House of Lords, and in doing so, can invite them to be part of his Cabinet. But what that means is that the Foreign Secretary, now Lord Cameron, will not be in the House of Commons. He won't be answerable to the elected representatives because he's in the upper house, in the House of Lords, which is not elected. And that's annoying some, not just outside opposition politicians that won't be able to ask questions of him in the way they're used to, but also some inside the party who say that at such a crucial time for international affairs with Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Palestine, China and Taiwan, the Foreign Secretary will not be held accountable to those people that are voted into power.
And let's talk about the other, just before I let you go, the other key cabinet changes that were also made.
Yeah, so there was no change to the Treasury, which was one of the key top jobs. Jeremy Hunt will, as planned, be providing his autumn statement with a future outlook for the UK economy. That's really important for Rishi Sunak to try to put his name on economic policy before the next general election. In terms of other large changes, there are some people that have long been in cabinet, such as Theresa Kofi, the environmental minister, who is now going after 10 years' time. And here's an interesting one. 3 so far MPs, this is still ongoing, but 3 so far have said that they're going to stand down from cabinet because they're worried about their seats, their constituencies. That is more unusual, but it's because Labour is looking like it's doing very well in the polls, still 20 percentage points ahead of the Conservatives. And so these ministers, these lawmakers, concerned that they may lose their seat unless they resign now and take action to try and shore up their support for any general election, which must be held before January 2025. But the date isn't set yet.
And it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds, because there's certainly a lot of scrutiny that is going to go towards the way of David Cameron now, particularly in this new position as he takes it up. But let me thank you for your time, Stuart. Do appreciate that update. That SABC News correspondent Stuart Smith.